Okay, well, welcome everyone. This is our third meeting of the truck regulation implementation group focused on outreach. We don't have a long agenda today, and I also want to mention Chris is out. She's our other co-chair, but she wasn't able to make this afternoon. I just wanted to start and give you some updates on where we are with some of the recommendations that we've provided and get some feedback, because one of the main recommendations from a month or so ago was a calendar, a compliance date calendar. And we showed it to you last time. There were some suggestions about color coding and making it more interactive. So we did a lot of research, and unfortunately we weren't able to color code because it's we have some ADA requirements, and color coding was not available, or we couldn't make that happen with the ADA requirements that we have to follow when posting documents to the web. So we couldn't do that, but we did want to get something up, and Yusuf, maybe you want to show what we have. One of the things I would like or like some feedback on is that most of the compliance requirements that we have are in the next few months. So we have that up, but we don't have compliance requirements every month for regulations. And so some of these are going to be blank. So I'm looking for, I feel uncomfortable posting a calendar that's empty of dates. So I'd like some feedback on what we should do with those months. Like, I don't think there's anything like in July. But yeah, that's what I'd like to throw out to the group. Here's what we were able to put together. But some of the months are empty, and so I'm looking for suggestions on what we should do about those. Christopher?
Yes, thank you. I'm trying to recall where we left off in terms of providing timelines for general activities that would allow fleets to comply with these. For example, if I mentioned we could include a timeline for how much an assessment would take from the utility to get the EV charging infrastructure ready. If we are allowed to, for example, identify expected timelines to install chargers, etc., thinking potentially some of this available time out in these later months could be used to do some of that planning for next year and making sure that they've established and fully understand how to get to, okay, let's say, for example, they've complied with everything over the first half of 2024. How can they get ready for 2025?
And so you're saying we should put that in the calendar, or is that kind of separate from what we have from the calendar that we showed last time?
Maybe, and this is where I was trying to recall, if we landed on having some general timelines for procurement, for example, included in the calendars as a FYI, this is when you should start to be able to meet all the requirements for starting in 2025. Maybe, something like that is a little much for this calendar, but I wanted to see if it was something that can be included.
Well, this one we were just going to have the deadlines for regulatory compliance. As far as planning, I think that depends on each fleet and their situation. So I'm not sure that we could put that in a calendar. I don't know if any of the other CARB folks want to weigh in, or if anybody else has ideas on. I mean, I think we have some general guidance as part of our ZEV next stop to zero events, but I don't know that we could say how long it's going to take to work with your utility, or how long your procurement is going to take.
Yeah, Anne Marina, I'll chime in. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I know that that's a difficult process to figure out when to work with a utility and when not to. However, as Anne Marie said, I think that does depend on each fleet, on their situation. Things such as some of the other information that we put together, either online or in some of our webinars, provide some guidance. But then the other difficulty is outside of that guidance, by telling someone this is when you should start, then if something goes wrong and they're either they get done early, they get done late, That's, I mean, honestly, that's not our place to tell someone. It's to offer as much information as we can.
Understood.
Matt?
Hey guys, so in November at least, or excuse me, July, I think that's when the first requirements essentially for clean truck check, actual physical in-use testing will need to occur. So I get Bruce's point about, oh, we don't want to tell them some regulatory compliance pathway, timelines potentially for unforeseen circumstances that may come up. It's not ARB's responsibility to hold the hand of fleets to figure out their regulatory compliance. I think with the clean truck check, because it's one of those years that seems a little odd where you'll normally have two tests per year. This one now, the first one for covered fleets, I believe with their renewal in January would be July being that first date. So maybe there's a notification about that, not telling them, hey, you know, just maybe there's a because if you renewed in January, your first test is in July. So maybe something to that effect to help fill up some of those dates.
Yeah, no, 100%, Matt. That would be the, and maybe I shouldn't have chosen July because you're right, it is July 1st, but there are other months that just won't have a regulatory compliance deadline. So then it would be blank. So, maybe August, like, yeah, you're right. July was a bad month to choose, but like August, do we just keep repeating the clean truck check requirements?
Right.
I mean, yeah, if you renewed your registration in February, then your first test is in August. If you renewed your, so on and so forth. I get it. It's not necessarily the regulatory deadline as we're.
No, but that's the information we want to provide. You're 100%.
Right. Right. Now, yeah, those two things are really different too. I mean, telling someone, hey, you should start talking to, a dealership about buying trucks, let's say, which is kind of like, start talking to your utility, is very different than offering information on, you've got a compliance deadline coming up. You should start thinking about, gathering information for it.
Yeah. So like May through, I guess, October will just be clean truck check. Well, not May, July, August, September, October would just be, testing begins, make sure you get your tests in, but I think June wouldn't have anything. May, and like I said, those months will just have clean truck check reminders. If we're okay with that.
Because technically speaking, there is, yes, outside of the waiver issuance at least. But, reminders are good. I get it. We can't tell them that, Bruce. I'm sure the truck dealers would like you to put on there, go talk to your truck dealer about buying some new equipment, which I can relate to them on that front. But perhaps just something to that effect, just some reminders, if we can't do color coordination, color coding, because of ADA stuff, just as many kind of friendly reminders, I think would be helpful.
I'm thinking, and I like this idea, and we kind of did that with reporting, so I want to say under maybe January, I don't remember exactly, but under January, let's say January 1st, we said something like, just a reminder, you may want to start collecting data for reporting. I think this kind of thing we could easily back up. We know that you have to do testing within, is it 60 or 90 days? I don't recall on clean truck check. But we could absolutely put reminders in that say, if you have a July 1st testing requirement, you can't have it. You either need to do it in this month, or this month. So I think those kind of things would be really, really helpful.
Susan?
Hello.
Hello. Good, thanks.
I think all the ideas that my colleagues provided are good. Reminders, I think, are always good. But I thought you guys were also doing a campaign, communication, maybe some sessions or things along the way that you're rolling out. This might be nice to, to say, find us here, listen to us here, or visit us here, join us at this meeting, things like that.
Yeah, we can. I guess I just don't want it to be, I don't want there to be too many places where people have to go to find out about events. If we have our main calendar with events that we can do a better job of posting where we're going to be. But we did talk about sending out email notices about where we're going to be, maybe monthly.
Well, it's just always helpful to have, you know,
Yeah.
certain places, I mean, right, particularly related to this.
Yes.
But-
Okay.
So, great, thank you.
Okay.
You know, Anne Marie, as you know, one of the things that we did is we put some links out to the side on the calendar. Maybe if there's not one there, I'm not sure that if there is or isn't, maybe there's a link to, you know, upcoming events or something like that. But you're right, I think we want to be cautious about filling the calendar. Oh, in fact, there's the calendar in front of me. If I looked over there, instead of who's on the screen, maybe that becomes one of those links over there.
Yeah. We can certainly do that. Okay, so yeah, I think will be a couple months, maybe we don't have anything, but we will send out reminders and we'll have the reminders on the calendar for clean truck check, at least.
When do you think
And-
you'll be, posting it or sharing it?
What's that?
When do you think you might be sharing the calendar?
I think we can do it.
Anne Marie, you went.
You're on mute, Anne Marie.
Why do they keep muting me? Wendy, why are you muting me?
Oh, I'll
I did
stop.
nothing.
No, it wasn't me.
Wasn't me, wasn't me.
Okay. I think I just wanted to get some feedback on what we do with those empty months, but I think we can get that out this week. We're ready to go. Okay. And then we can go into the next part. I don't know, Cecile, if you want me to take the first one.
Sorry. Sorry, Edwin. Sorry, everyone. I'm just I'm just recovering from a cold. So
no.
as Emery mentioned, Chris is not here today, but CARB wants to hear any suggestions from the team. What else, the additional Q&A sessions that you want to see from CARB? There is a Q&A session coming next week on March 5th from 9 to 12 noon. That's going to focus on ACF reporting. So they want to hear what are the suggestions, what topics you guys want to focus on and do Q&A. Also, the outreach tool kit is still under development. So they want to hear feedback from the group, as well as it was mentioned by Sylvia earlier about the campaign about ACF to make it more visible. So these are the 3 topics that we're going to discuss this afternoon.
So yeah, thanks, Cecile. So so we have the reporting session next week. We are going to have a state and local government session probably the following week. There should be a Gov delivery coming out soon. And then each of the TRIG, the other TRIG groups, so infrastructure, rural provisions, and border, will also have meetings in March. So March is going to be a very busy month. But as far as the Q&A sessions for ACF after our state and local government, are there suggestions for what else we should do? Matt? Oh, did you put your hand down, Matt?
Sorry, I clicked the wrong button. You'd think I'd figure this Zoom thing out. That's the best joke about working in Zoom now for everybody. Again, you know, we're ACF focused. ACT might not have the direct end user. One rule that we haven't really talked about is the low NOx omnibus rule and sort of what the constraints are for fleets in purchasing internal combustion diesel engines outside of the state of California, or at least what restrictions are in place that may prevent a vehicle that was purchased outside of the state and then be registered into California. I think that might be helpful because there's still some misconception about exactly how that works. That might be helpful. And then just the ongoing clean truck check. I think it's always good to keep people reminded about this. You know, sometimes it's too late. Once they get their registration denied, then it's too late, or they end up at a scale in a random inspection. It's too late. So those I think is important ongoing training from an outreach perspective. It can't hurt, and it's very topical insofar as there's going to be requirements every month for people to keep people's minds working that way. And additional notices from DMV, things of this nature. But as far as specific training, I think Clean Truck Check is great. And then maybe you might want to think about that low NOx omnibus rule and how that applies to truck purchases out of state that are going to be registered intrastate in California, or even with a portion California plate, how that would work from a mileage standpoint.
Yeah, for our Clean Truck Check program, I believe they're thinking about doing something similar to what we're doing with ACF, is having these Q&A sessions set up. So I think that will probably be happening in the next month or so. But yeah, no, it's really important to make sure this stays at top of mind for people. But anything ACF related that the team would like to see?
Do you want to talk about, you know, the waiver process and how that works relative to, you know, timelines for, you know, once a waiver is submitted, or authority under the Clean Air Act or anything to that effect? I don't know if we're trying to fill up things and trying to inform end users. I think that is also a subject area that many folks might not be very familiar with. Just food for thought if you're wondering. That's ACF related, Emery.
Yes.
I second that, Matt. I was gonna suggest that, so I know that.
Richard?
Yeah, I agree with Matt, and this is on a little bit different topic. But I'm hearing, myself am struggling with identifying the cost of zero emission vehicles compared to the petroleum diesels that we're replacing. And the challenge is when we're going to request the funding for compliance, we have to put a price tag on it, and we don't have a ready source of information. I tried hitting up my CalStart contacts at the HVIP program because I think they have some data, but they politely declined to provide any information. It would be extremely helpful to fleets that are trying to secure the funding for compliance to have, if nothing else, but just like a ballpark chart of the various equipment types above 8,500 GVW that we can go to readily when we're preparing agenda reports or something like that. So I don't know if cost has hit the discussions previously or what kind of input you get, but to aid with compliance, that would be extremely helpful. And again, this may not be the right venue to put that forward, but I thought I'd just throw that out to you. That, you know what? That is the single biggest problem that I struggle with, if you can believe that.
You know, and I'll speak up. I can believe that. It is difficult to find costs. I think it's because every dealership is so variable. Every situation is so variable. You know, you go in and you want to buy one truck, and you're not going to get as good a deal as if you go in and you're going to buy 20 trucks. So I completely get your frustration with, you know, not one place to go look up an MSRP, if you will. I mean, we can work with CalStart, but I don't know that there is, you know, that there are numbers that we could actually put up. You know, I've been working with this for over 3 years now, and again, I know that it is difficult, and it's just a matter of reaching out to those dealerships, I think, and seeing what, you know, what they will sell you a truck for.
Thank you.
I didn't raise my hand, but I can see everybody else with their hand raised, so I figured I'd just jump in. One of the questions that my team's asking, besides the waiver question that asked, is the infrastructure. Right, I know that, and this may not be, I don't know if the utility or other are gonna provide information about infrastructure challenges. And there's quite a bit, like, how do you deal with your landowner who doesn't want to, or the property owner that doesn't want to have infrastructure, and how do you, so there's a lot of questions around the infrastructure side of this. And some of it goes into the waiver, and I don't know if it makes sense here, as part of CARB, or maybe there's a collab, with, with, providers for property, the utility or something to provide additional information on it. It's very confusing.
So if I mentioned, so is the ask for, how to, address the infrastructure or to complement the purchase requirements? We do have an infrastructure group. So, this one's outreach. We have a rule provisions, we have border, and then we have an infrastructure group who will be having a meeting in March, later March. So it might be something that we can tee up for them.
Yeah, yeah. This is where, I mean, it seems to me like it would be nice that if your other groups are doing things that are co-related to it, perhaps it's something you put also on the calendar. Because we'll need to go over here for that and go over there for that. It might be helpful to just put it in this one. And I know it's in multiple places, but I think that in itself helps. I think part of our challenge is we have to go here to get this and go there and dig through material to find this other piece. So trying to pull it together into one place, at least things that are co-related, I think would be really helpful. Same time.
Yeah, I'm just thinking what, so we have the TRIG meeting page that has, the different groups and when they're meeting, and then the recordings, and the agendas and the panel members. So that's all in one place. Are you asking that we put, and then there's the ACF meetings and events page that has everything. What else should we be putting on there? Or how else should we organize it, I guess?
I was suggesting just having the information on the calendar, but maybe since you have it in these other places, you don't.
Let's,
I thought we download the calendar and you have everything, but you don't have everything, right? You need to go over here for infrastructure and over there. So it's not a combined one place of where everything's at, other than it's on the web page, right?
right. So the calendars that we put together are just compliance requirements, deadlines. It's not events. So that's where the ACF page has everything that should be there, but we can double check to make sure that it does have everything.
Thank you.
Anyone else have suggestion for?
So Anne Marie, just because I heard Susan's suggestion, do we have, I mean, all of us signed up for subscription to receive notices from CARB for the group, like for this group, for public outreach. So you guys have all our email addresses. Is it possible? I mean, I don't know if everybody subscribed to CARB notices. I subscribe to it, so that's why I will get the notices. I was wondering, just to address Susan's suggestion, whether all the email addresses for this group, they should be added to the subscription list for CARB. So every time you get notices like meetings or deadlines, everybody receives it. So that way you don't have to update your compliance calendar. However, everybody on this group still gets notices from CARB that there is a infrastructure meeting that's going to be held late this March, or, you know, the rules and provisions group will have a meeting. It's just a suggestion after hearing what she suggested.
Yeah, actually, we talked about this earlier. I hope that everyone here is on the ACF listserv. Is there anyone not getting the notices?
Are there separate ones for the infrastructure meetings? Because I am getting the ones for TRIG and for the notifications that's coming out, but are they all in the same email chain, come from the same source?
They all come from, what's the official name, Yusuf?
So yeah, we do on our ACF webpage, we do have a subscription listserv. And I can share that with you real fast and show you just where it's at. It's really easy to log in and register. Give me 1 second here. Okay, this is our ACF webpage, Advanced Clean Fleets webpage. And all you do is click right here where it says subscribe. And once you subscribe, you just enter your email and it'll ask you which subscription you want. So we send all our subscriptions go through our ZEV fleets subscription holders. So if you just check that box, any Gov delivery notices that we send out for meetings and updates, they'll come straight to your email, and it's pretty quick and easy, and that's a easy way to get notified without having to go to the actual calendar and look at dates. And we also do have events calendar, as Anne Marie mentioned, that we post all of our meetings and events in addition to our ACF meetings and events page as well.
Thank you, Lisa.
Well, if there are any other suggestions, please feel free to email me. March will be very busy, as I mentioned, because there will be at least, I think, 3 more TRIG meetings for the other groups, and then we'll have 2 Q&A sessions. So yeah, subscribe to the ACF, the ZEV Fleet listserv, and you will get notices for all of those.
Is it okay to go to the next topic?
Yes.
Yeah. So now we're asking for feedback on the outreach toolkit.
So yeah, Yusuf, do you want to bring up the draft?
Yes, let me bring it up here. 1 second.
So we're trying to do what Matt kind of suggested last meeting, is create the buzz for ACF. So we just have a short intro paragraph about the ACF regulation and then who's affected, and then there's a list of the resources that we have available to help understand the reg and compliance options, and then just general support for transitioning to a zero-emission vehicle.
Yeah, so as Anne Marie mentioned, we have the intro. We talk about the different components: dredge, high priority fleets, state and local government as part of the ACF. And then we have a resource page right below it that talks about all the different resources that we have, like our ZEV truck stop, our fact sheets, our fleet calculator, frequently asked questions, any training videos that we have, information on infrastructure, resources, our truckers reporting database and whatnot. And we have a potential tweet as well down here. And this link here is to the email listserv that I mentioned earlier. And I'll drop a link to that, our ACF page, in the chat here if you want to sign up on that listserv as well.
So what do folks think? Would this be helpful to you to send out to your members or to your organization? Looking for some feedback on what would be most helpful to you.
We can host it on our site. I would suggest maybe, well, I would suggest making them separate pages, like hard return, if it's an actual document, as soon as you start getting into keep going, to those resources. That should be its own page, hard return until it's its own page.
Sure.
And it keep scrolling if you don't mind. Yusuf, thank you. At the bottom for questions or more information on ACF, that should almost be the leading paragraph at the top of the document. That, I mean, maybe not to preempt people, but it also then notifies them to sign up for the listserv right away, right off the bat, and then they can keep reading. That might be helpful.
Great, thanks.
Great, thank you, man. Oh, go ahead, Anne-Marie.
Oh, no. I was just gonna ask if there are other comments or suggestions or, something else you'd like to see as part of this.
Oh, this is great. Nice work.
Probably should include the calendar, Yusuf.
Good point. Yeah, thank you.
We could also include the meetings and events page link, for people to have it all in one place so they can check the ACF meetings and events.
Okay. I'll include those. Yeah.
But can you scroll down a little bit so I can see what the potential tweet is? I didn't get to see that part. Okay. You need some more hashtags in there, Yusuf. But
Yeah,
just to close out, those are
potential-
good suggestions, Anne Marie, about the calendar, especially kind of what Susan was talking about, and the other resource that you're speaking to. I think that's important. It's a lot of information to digest for people, and as it's just a several page document, hopefully people log into it and find what they're trying to look for. But are you planning on then pushing this onto its own web page on
Yes.
the site as well? Okay.
Mhm.
So
Should
like,
we
go ahead.
should we organize it differently? Should it be like regulatory resources and then support or compliance assistance? Like, I get that it's a lot. So if there's a different way for us to organize the resources, I'm happy to do that. Things like the meetings and events and the calendar are like kind of stay in the know kinds of things. Can you go down to the resources, Yusuf, please?
Sure.
Like, would that be helpful to pull out things like, the fact sheets and the ACF calculator and the program page, the FAQs? We can make ZEV truck stop separate, Cal Fleet Advisor on a separate page, HVIP.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful, Emery.
Okay.
But that's just my thought. I'm not speaking for the group.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think for now, it's good to just to have it all at once, right? So you could kind of see what's available, because we want to send the information out as soon as possible, and then later on we can kind of start tailoring it and separating it maybe.
Okay. I think we'll just like reorganize it a little bit. We should be able to get that out tomorrow. So it's just like regulatory support and then additional support. And then we'll have the meetings and events. And so it shouldn't take too much time. But yeah, I appreciate that. So we want to get this out as soon as possible too.
Okay. So are you going to send it as a link or are you going to send the actual welcome?
I would prefer to send it as a link. I don't know if if you have a opinion on or preference if we should send it. I mean, the intro, I was thinking if you have newsletters or if you wanted to send it out as an email. So it's open to the group. Do you want a document or do you want a webpage link? So
the only thing I'd like to add is if you want it linked on our web page, I do have to go through several additional steps to ADA remediate it before we can get it posted on our website, which is not a problem. It could be totally done. It just to be a few more days before we can get it out. If we send it to you as a document, as an attachment, that's something you guys can forward to your folks. It would be quicker.
That would be great. I just
Okay.
want The document, so.
Yeah, we can send it to all of you as a document, and then we can work to get it up online.
That would be great. Thank you.
Can we just make sure the document is like has the same type of appearance as the other ARB outreach where there's a heading on it with logo, etc.
Sure.
So it differentiates that, you know, this is coming a state resource, not something that we specifically, you know, put together ourselves as individual organizations.
Yeah. Okay, we can work on that. So you'll get both of these things by the end of the week for sure.
I'll drop the link to the calendar for everyone to use here in the chat, so everyone can have that link right away.
Any additional comments to the toolkit?
Well, I would hope that it'd be relatively organic as we are, you know, especially evolving and getting feedback from our own membership about if there's something that might be missing or if something's come up. You know, we do a lot of outreach just in general, but I wouldn't want us in this group to create something that, unless it was obviously a paid advertisement or something that had already been published, but for these things that ARB is in control of, to keep them as relatively living documents to the extent that, you know, changes can be made and this isn't, we vote on this today or we say this is okay today and then that's it. I wouldn't expect that much, but just a thought.
Yeah.
All right, any additional comment before we go to how to make ACF more visible? Like, I guess we have to go down and look at the tweet as part of the social media campaign.
Yeah, I think we're looking at suggestions for what else we should be doing. And does ACF, you know, for Clean Truck Check, it was the heavy duty inspection and maintenance program, and now it's Clean Truck Check. It's a little catchier, more recognizable, easier to understand. Is there something we should be doing with ACF also? So those are the things I would like to know. How do we bring more visibility to ACF for folks who are not following CARB and the regulatory process? And then does it need its own, does it need another name?
Well, who's good at making TikTok videos on staff there? Maybe you guys put a funny outfit on, or put some dogs or puppies or cats into it. I mean, honestly, if you're, you know, if you're trying to seek out this information, there, I think it should just be easy to find, right? I mean, which is, I don't want to, repetitive might not be the word, but consistent posting, consistent messaging, providing, you know, something for end users that, oh, I breezed across that. Paid ads, I think, is important too. There's, you know, you can target demographics on Facebook and Instagram. I think we talked about this before. I don't know enough about the LinkedIn platform relative to paid advertisements, but or sponsored advertisements, but maybe stepping that up a little bit more. I mean, obviously the main audience we're trying to get at here are folks who are within the regulated entities. But if we're trying to bring more awareness just in general to what's going on, to shippers groups or other entities that may have some investment into the supply chain on one level or another, I think just consistent, again, repetitive might not be the same word, but consistent messaging, ease of finding. I mean, it's a function of volume, really. I mean, the more people are exposed to it, ideally, the more they'll be willing to possibly share it. And, you know, I know you guys can't really get cheeky with your posts, but, you know, you need something to grab people and get them in there. We always found years ago when we had trying to help people understand and get motivated about thinking about the rules was, the enforcement section and the citations that had been issued. We're kind of not in that right now as far as the truck rules are concerned. Maybe there's some lingering ones, but did you know type of, drawing the audience in, asking a question, call to action, things of this nature, I think are helpful.
So Matt, would this be just out to our listservs? Would this be to this group? Like, I'm trying to figure out, I like the idea. Being consistent and being out there on a more regular basis with any kind of messaging, right? Anything that's ACF related. I'm just wondering, I'm trying to figure out how do we get to the folks that are not following CARB already?
Sorry, I was talking on mute. I think that's the thing. It's just a matter of which platform you're going to. I mean, I know that there was the video that ARB produced several years ago, which was, I know there's been those animated information explainers. I think that the focus is really on social media. You can target wherever you want to go. And I think it's just the messaging in and of itself. Like, yes, this should be shared with the members. Yes, this should be shared with the listserv. But above and beyond that, if we're trying to get more, I guess, more people to acknowledge that these rules exist, or that there may be future rulemakings on the horizon, and to get them to follow the ARB, I think, again, it's going to be content driven, but there is a level of sophistication with algorithms and whatnot with the social media sites. I don't know, maybe you guys have a social media intern or something that you can lean on to think about some of this content. Again, outside of, puppies and kittens, you're going to need something that people are going to want to engage in. And again, that call to action, like, did you know there's, almost 3 million vehicles operating in California on a daily basis that are covered by these rules? Did you know there's X tons of emissions that have been reduced, or, things of, there's something that people are going to be interested in, because when they see CARB, there's two thoughts typically. It's like, the proverbial 4-letter word of California, so to speak, with all due respect to everybody. But, on the other side of that is, I need to know something because they're going to do something that's going to impact my ability to stay in business. So I don't know. I see Katie has her hand up, so I won't.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Oh my gosh, you're keeping me awake because I'm out on the East Coast, so it's later in the day for me, but I like it. Just wanted to volunteer Prologis' team. We have a big marketing team, lots of folks that focus on social media. So if there was any time we wanted to connect our groups, volunteering some of their support if that could be helpful.
Yeah, that's great, Katie. Thank you.
Okay, I'll reach out then and maybe just introduce who should I add to an email introduction from this call?
You can add me.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Jesus?
Would the group be interested in maybe designating a week, in the upcoming weeks to really focus a lot of outreach efforts through all of our networks and really do a big push to get information out to different fleets so that hopefully they can hear it from, different channels?
What does that mean exactly, Jesus?
Maybe just figuring out, just a week where, where we share all of that information through our social media, LinkedIn or Twitter or, Instagram, along with the different social media accounts from CARB, and then also working with our different groups to send out, in their newsletters, information during that 1 week, again, to really emphasize the more like a focus outreach during a specific week.
I guess that's a question for the group, right?
It's like there's
Yes.
there's Shark Week, and then there's like Carb Week, maybe. Maybe it could be good because you have consistent, people are doing the same thing, right? I think
Yep.
that's a good perspective to have, Jesus. I mean, the more voices singing from the same script at the same time, perhaps it'll create more buzz.
It's the chatter that he's suggesting to take advantage of. I mean, the more people talk about a topic, the greater the volume of people that hear it and listen, and the wider your message spreads, because the more people are talking about it.
So Anne Marie, there's your tagline. It's carb week. That's your tagline right there. Matt just gave it to you.
Carb is so broad.
Well, many years ago when I started this, we had Clean Truck Month. Maybe we could have Clean Truck Week. Don't want to scare people with Carb Week.
That's the thing, Bruce.
Scare them, I know.
Fear is a great motivator on the one hand, and we're not
Yeah.
talking about scaring these fleets necessarily, but it goes beyond fleets. I would think that any fleet operating in California would have been living under a rock to not know about this stuff. It's the outside entities, it's out of state fleets, it's engaging with other trucking associations, engaging with the American Trucking Association, even. And CARB does a lot of stuff, and maybe that's the thing, is that it is CARB week because here's all the stuff that we're doing, and the focus could be on trucks this go round. I mean, I don't know. CARB is very recognizable. When you're like Clean Truck Week, you just lost half of your audience. Christopher's been patient. I'll stop interrupting here.
Yeah, thanks, folks. I think just calling back to an earlier point made about just opening up different individual resources of the team here in general, I think having easily reproducible pieces of collateral that can be shared with a variety, number of agencies. For example, I know my agency, we work with a lot of national chains, fleets, etc., who aren't as focused in California, but obviously have local operations here. And sometimes, the local folks can't communicate up to the upper management team, and there's that lack of communication. I think having collateral that's very easily shared and having things that can be communicated with consultants who have a broad touch point with different types of fleet types could be useful to get the word out in general. So just thinking about how to continue to spread the message.
Hi, folks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Has anyone here heard of the Electric Legacy campaign, or anyone at CARB heard of the Electric Legacy campaign?
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, so it's a campaign about electric trucks, and it's inspired by drivers and dispatchers and industry professionals. And so they're creating some really good, professional content that I think could really inspire CARB, perhaps if there's money in the budget for a commercial. If we're thinking about really reaching lots of folks that aren't following CARB, I think a commercial of some sort really comes to mind. And I think that a commercial was mentioned maybe in our first meeting, and I think a commercial would be great. But if you take a look at this Electric Legacy campaign, I'll drop the link here. Their content, I think, is just super inspiring, and it's really focused on changing culture and making the language around electric trucks accessible. And I think that this could be a really great example to CARB in how they're handling their their social media and how they're filming their videos and how they're leading with people who are actually truck drivers.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. That's very nice. Yeah. Yeah, we'll take a look at that. We do have money for a media contract, but it probably won't start till the summer.
Oh, Anne Marie, we can't really hear you. I think we're hearing your video play or someone's video play.
Oh,
Actually,
I'm
I
not
hear you,
hearing that.
Henry.
can you hear me now?
Yes, can you just repeat what you just said?
Oh, we are going to hire a media contractor to do some things like radio and, videos for cable, that kind of thing, but it probably won't start till the summer. But I like this idea of how do we connect with this electric legacy campaign?
Would that contract include the ability to do some graphics, like a logo? I'm looking on the website and there seems to be like a stock image for the ACF reporting, but it might be nice because there's so many different programs to kind of have a unique identifier for the ACF program.
Yeah, we have some in-house staff to design our logos. We can talk to them. That's why I was wondering, do we need something like that? Would that be helpful to have something that's more identifiable?
I think it might help the program stand out from all the others.
Okay.
And I think that's like a really great point about branding. Like if you look at the Electric Legacy campaign, I think they're really strong with how they're branding this campaign.
That's a great website. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Christopher, I don't know if your hand is, if you have another comment or question.
No, sorry, I'll lower it.
Okay. Matt?
So I think we need to figure out what exactly we're trying to get across here. It is very appropriate for, the ARB to think about branding and, again, consistency. And if there's money to be spent, I think that who's deciding where that money gets spent, I think is an important part. I mean, yes, this looks very nice. It's great. I'm wondering who's behind it. Either way, we have to figure out what we're trying to do. Are we trying to get people to figure out what they need, what regulatory resources are available to them in order to comply, or to get them excited because they're going to drive an electric truck? I don't think that there's a need to get people excited about advanced technology platforms. Unless there's this contingent out there, and in California, a little more challenging to find than in some other states, I would imagine. But for the most part, people are relatively familiar with the technology. While there is some perhaps misinformation or some misperceptions about performance capabilities, depending on what GVWR class you're in, we need to figure out, are we doing outreach for people to know what their regulatory requirements are, or are we trying to get them to feel better about these regulatory requirements? I mean, they're almost two different things from how I look at it.
I'm interested to hear from the group, but from my perspective, it would be about knowing the regulatory compliance and how to be in compliance with ACF. People outside of our agency could do more about zero emission trucks and be excited about it. But our obligation is to help folks understand what's required.
Yeah, and to be clear, Matt, so I suggested that campaign as inspiration of a campaign that is like branding and leading with truck drivers and industry professionals. So I suggested that as an example and
Yeah, it's
inspiration.
a great example. It looks great. It's very clean. It's very professional. Absolutely. And I think it's important, again, it kind of boils down to this consistency. And rebranding the ARB or the ACF, I mean, that sounds like a lot of work that I don't know if we have time for at this point in time. And not to say that we need to be performing triage, but we're getting close.
Yeah.
But I agree, Marisa, Marisa, it's important to have consistent branding, and this looks very professional. they don't have any ADA requirements that they need to adhere to, right? There's no real outside constraints on private industry. It's better for, my member companies and our association and our partner organizations to have resources that we're able to share that are consistent when it comes from the state. Because there's a host of regulatory policies, as Jeff alluded to earlier, like which one are we talking about today? But it is important. We do need to have at least consistent branding, and then someone in the media world, and it's great. Thank you, for those who have offered up their resources to try to help navigate through this pro bono, I'm assuming, is, encouraging. So appreciate that clarification though.
Yeah. And I wonder, and actually I agree with all of you guys, and Matt, you made a very good point. Which one is it that we're doing? And I'd absolutely agree with Anne-Marie that it's here's your regulatory requirements. I mean, personally, because of what we do with Truck Stop and my rest of my group, basically we draw someone in with the regulatory requirement because that's what they want to find out from CARB. But then we also do give them information on vehicles and so forth. But branding has been very important to us for a long time, and folks like Matt that have been around looking at our websites and so forth for a long time will notice that that consistency across like our Truck Stop websites. And I'm wondering if if just well, if you've looked at our Truck Stop website recently been within the last year or maybe year and a half, we have the ZEV Truck Stop website, and we basically tried to keep a similarity to Truck Stop while at the same time something new, some different colors, a little bit of a different look to it. And I'm wondering if that might be a good way, since there are many people that are used to our graphics, if you will, our branding for Truck Stop, our branding for fact sheets and so forth, if just modifying that some still says, hey, this is information from CARB, but it's about something new at the same time. And so I'll throw that out there for some thought.
Right. I mean, for most of the staff on here, we've seen how far the website has come. And, a lot of that has been driven by the ADA requirements. Me personally, I liked the old version of the old Truck Stop, but I'm an older person, so maybe that's my problem. So, but yeah, Bruce, I think that's a good idea, kind of variations a little bit. I mean, we need it to stand out, to Jeff's point. I think that's critical. To Maurice's point, also critical, branding's important.
Yeah.
If we can all agree that we're trying to get people to focus in on their regulatory burdens or regulatory requirements, then that's where we're going to try to go. We can work within that construct or going, top down. It's just a matter of getting with some professionals who know a lot more about this than me and us on the phone here to get some professional feedback about it and to see what they have to say. Keeping in mind, our messaging is about regulatory, resources for compliance, and then also limitations on how far we can, I guess, go outside the lines in what's necessary for consistent ADA compliance, as well as consistency within all the other resources that are available on the website. But, your point is well taken though, Bruce.
Okay, I mean, I think there are a lot of good ideas. I really appreciate all of the feedback. We have some things to think about, and some follow-up, but I appreciate the conversation.
So any additional questions, comments from the TRIG panel? All right, I don't see any hands up or any questions. Anne-Marie, is it okay to open it to public comments?
Sure.
All right, so we're opening it up to public comments because I know somebody from the attendees had a question earlier, but I guess his hand is down now. But any comments from the public? It's Ben Nussbaum. Ben, what's your question?
Hey, sorry, can everyone hear me here?
Yes.
Yeah, I had two questions. So thanks for taking my question here. But the first one is around specifically the calendar and the number of different days on the calendar where fleets are supposed to report. From a ACF and waiver perspective, how can we vocalize this to fleets? So, we deal with fleets all day long that have questions. What's the way or a sentence or two to vocalize this to fleets saying, here's the deadline to report, in answering very generally, we get questions about penalties and things of that nature. So how can we communicate this to fleets accurately and, kind of the stage that everything's in, particularly with the waiver at this point?
I'll jump in, Ben. And excuse me, thank you. That is a good question. First of all, I would say one thing, and obviously the waiver does complicate the way to explain this a little bit. If you've seen, pardon me, I've been on calls all day. If you've seen the enforcement letter that went out, I actually think it has some good language. Basically, and I don't recall it right now, but basically, it talks about CARB not enforcing the requirement to report right now. But we encourage people to report, and we lay out a couple of good reasons to do that, such as, when reporting is required, you're going to have to come back and report what the fleet was from this starting date. So, it's just easier to do that. I know that's a little bit bureaucratic, but again, I think they did do kind of a good job of laying that out. Is that kind of touching on at least part of your question, Ben?
Yeah, Bruce, no, that is helpful. And what we try to do when we speak to fleets directly, is encourage them to do reporting and follow the calendar. It's very hard to do so when there seemingly is no penalties or enforcement in the shortcoming.
Absolutely.
So that point, you saying like, when reporting is required, it's going to have to backdate it is a great objection there, and it's just going to get a little bit more involved. And you said there was potentially a second bullet point there that you wanted to touch on.
No, I'm sorry. I guess the second thing, and you just mentioned it, and I forgot, is the issue of penalties. And I think maybe in this case, just pointing out that, I will go on and say that the announcement does also talk about, CARB reserving the right to, to enforce back to the beginning date. Again, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but the beginning date of the regulation. So that might help a little bit with, are there going to be penalties? Well, they are saying that they can go back to basically February 1 of 2024 in this case. But as far as penalty amounts, if you were talking about that, that's something we get asked all the time, and that varies so much based on what the violation is. Whenever there's a penalty that is handed out, there's always a process to go through. There are a lot of things that our enforcement staff takes into account, in that penalty settlement process. So it's really difficult to be able to say, here's a dollar amount that it would cost you. And I don't know if that's what you were getting at, or if the first piece that I mentioned is really what you were getting at, that yes, enforcement is on hold right now, and that might be the best way to put that. Will it remain, it won't remain on hold once the waiver is granted, but will it be enforced back to the original date? We're saying that we reserve the right to do that.
Okay, great. And just quickly, when we talk about waiver being granted, other than saying sometime in the future, if at all, putting a timeline on that, sometime before 2024, fall, it's open-ended. Would you recommend mentioning anything specific to fleets as we talk to them?
I wish I had that crystal ball or that insight. I believe we have asked EPA to expedite it, but it will be on EPA's, on their timeline. I don't have a good idea of it.
All right, thanks. And just one final comment. As far as outreach goes,
Yeah.
we host a number of public webinars, and one of the best way that I've actually seen some ACF regulation get out there is through the OEMs specifically. You know, them hosting public webinars or doing mail blast all their fleet managers that they have in their CRM system, things of that nature. Is that something that CARB would maybe consider down, like encouraging OEMs to do that, or supporting them, or providing funding to do more of those type of activities?
Funding? No. I don't want to be totally blunt, but no, we don't have funding for that. Supporting it? Absolutely. And my group and I, we do a lot of the outreach, and I absolutely will, you know, we work with pretty much anyone that asks us to, as long as we can, you know, as long as we have lead time to do it. I mean, that's even, you know, coming to, you know, going to an event. We're limited to California pretty much, but I've sat in on a number of webinars put on by other entities, given presentations, done Q&A. Absolutely support that. You know, ride and drives, one thing that, you know, we do as well through CalStart. But you know, I've often said that if an OEM is doing a ride and drive, they want CARB to come out and, you know, have a booth, give a presentation, whatever the case is. Again, as long as we have some lead time, we are more than happy to do it, because that is really at dealerships as well. In fact, I think maybe dealerships even more so in some instances. But those are really, really valuable events, because we tap into markets that we may not be tapping into otherwise.
Great, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Matt?
Just on that point, I mean, obviously there's some uncertainty about enforcement action relative to ACF in its current form. Whether or not the waiver gets issued is anybody's guess. But to that fine point, Bruce, I get it. You know, we can't really hang a hat on it, but you know, the old $10,000 per day, right? I mean, this is the catch-all. You got to do a lot to get to that point, and I've never heard of a trucking company in that position. But I think that pointing to the health and safety code, talking about the ARB's authority, what's been bestowed upon them for monetary penalties, I think you can probably dance around that enough, you know, to Ben's question about, like, well, I mean, it sounds like the fleets he's talking to are like, well, what's it going to cost me is basically the question. You know, is it cheaper for me to pay the fines, right? Or is it cheaper for me to actually try to comply? And there's no shortage of challenges for enforcement activity, but, you know, pointing out that traditionally in other rules that haven't had the same uncertainty around ACF, there was shipper and broker compliance that went along with it that could be brought into the fray, if you will. So I think that maybe something to that effect that everybody could at least point to, so we're all consistent, because it was 10,000. I think it went up to $20,000 a day. I'm not sure, but
I may have. I wasn't aware of that. It may have.
Yeah, exactly. So this is, I think, from that perspective, and again, there's enforcement discretion that's involved. It's severity of the violation. It's kind of, you know, how long it took you to respond to the initial citation. There's a lot of factors that go into how much you're actually going to pay. But I mean, just generally, I think if this group wanted to have that type of resource available, I think pointing to that health and safety code and what the traditional rules used as an enforcement matrix for responsible parties, if you will, may be helpful to paint that picture a little bit more.
No, you're absolutely right. And when we do point to something, that is exactly what we point to, is, look, this is the maximum. That's about what we can tell you. We used to have, and I haven't looked at enforcement site in a long time, but I believe that they used to also have a list of penalties, like that were cases, I should say, and the penalties associated with them over a year's period of time or something like that. Again, I haven't looked in years, but that might be something, you know, worth taking a look at as well, to see if they still do. But yes, pointing to the health and safety code, because I mean, the fact of the matter is, it could be that if it was something really egregious, it could truly be that kind of a dollar amount, or at least it puts it in perspective.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the historical enforcement reports here. I see 2021 under the historical. I'm not sure. 2022 must have come out. It's not jumping out at me on this website. But that's also something that's helpful. While it involves every single covered entity, if you will, in that enforcement report, that also gives a good idea about kind of overall activity. So, I think one of the frustrations that we had initially with the truck and bus development was that it seemed like nobody was talking to each other, from enforcement to rule staff to incentives. It was all sort of, everybody was operating in their own individual compartments. And while it's gotten better, I think it's, and it's always been important, I think, as we had talked about through the first truck rural outreach group, about having that enforcement component to at least talk around, again, while there's the uncertainty around ACF at this point in time, there is no uncertainty about dozens of other rules that have been passed and enforced and actually had folks be cited on. So, I mean, I wouldn't completely say, oh, well, we don't know. It could be anything. Let's try to be more focused on, well, it could be anything, but this is what it has been. Here's our statutory authority, and take a look at these enforcement reports to see what kind of activity we're getting.
Yeah, point well taken. Yeah.
Any additional comments, questions? I have a comment. I don't know. It's a different. If you want to do a campaign for ACF, a lot of us, like me, I work for a municipality. We celebrate Earth Day, so it's coming this April. So I don't know if you want to do a push for ACF during Earth Day, because you are advocating for zero emission vehicles, which supports the planet. So I don't know if if CARB wants to do that push for ACF. So it's just a recommendation.
I like that idea.
Any additional comments, suggestions? Brian Wilson.
Yeah, so Bruce earlier was talking about CARB's willingness to visit an event and maybe give a presentation on ACF. How would one go about requesting that?
Sorry, I had to find my unmute button there. And I don't have the link. We do have a speaker request form. You fill that out. It basically trickles down to probably myself or to one of the other groups. Again, just give us plenty of lead time. Especially if it's, something really big, like you might want us to come out and man a booth somewhere, as well as give a presentation, that kind of thing. Anne Marie, I hate to ask my boss to do something, but I think you might have the link quicker than I do. You had it earlier. You know what? Somebody dropped it in. Look at that. Brandon. Very good. Thank you, Brandon. So if you go there, fill that out, give them a date, or if you're not even sure of a date, we're usually do something the third Monday of every month. We're thinking April or May, or whatever the case is. Put that in, and we'll contact you from that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we have a group of fleet managers, government fleet managers in the area. So that'd be awesome to have a speaker come and give an overview and answer questions. So I will be doing that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Bruce, does it have to be an event? Can it be, gathering from one company, or does it have to be?
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I've done, and I say I and others have gone. Well, in fact, I just was at. Oh my goodness, I'm surprised you weren't there. Now that I think of it, Cecile, there was I forget what it was called.
Alt car.
Alt car, yeah, exactly. Down in Moreno Valley, it was a lot of public fleet managers at that. We had a request. I went down to that. And that was just basically a day long, well, not even a day long, about a half a day long kind of a seminar with some little workshops. We have requests from, truck dealerships to come out, and they put together, a list of their customers, invite their customers and come on in. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, we can't always make it, but we're pretty good about making it out there.
Yeah, Bruce and his team have been great, but we don't have a ton of resources to do
Right.
this. So that's why we are having the Q&A sessions.
Right.
So people can ask the questions there and we reach a broader audience that way. Matt?
Sorry, and we're getting close to the end, so I'll keep it short, but, in my experience, ARB staff has always been more than willing and able to participate in webinars, in-person events. It's just a matter of asking relative to their availability. And I would say for the folks on this committee and for the public that they are more than willing. They've done several events for us. I've seen Bruce out on the speaking tour at many different events, as well as other ARB staff. So they're out there. So one thing was about to try to plug this ride and drive that's coming up on March 1st out in San Bernardino that CalStart, as well as ourselves, are putting on. We do at least 3 to 4 per year, in conjunction with CalStart. It's open to all fleets, not just drayage fleets. We have electric forklifts all the way up to Class 8 heavy duty trucks. But just as a kind of a point, I tried to go and look it up on the website really quick because I know I had seen it on the website, and I go to the truck stop, I go to training and events, and I don't see it anywhere. I see a list of things, again, we're ADA compliant, so maybe we might not also think about how we organize the truck stop relative to training versus events. Possibly 2 different things.
Yeah.
Right? Where I want to go out and kick the tires. I don't want to learn about how to perform a smoke test, so to speak, even though those are slowly becoming a thing of the past.
I think that's on the ZEV truck stop site, and maybe we shouldn't keep those two separated. But I know we have the ride and drives posted there. And don't forget the one on the 29th in Stockton as well, also, I believe, put on by HTA. So, but yeah, I didn't think we had things that separated, but we may have.
Okay, I'm on the ZEV truck stop now, Bruce. And next stop to zero educational events. Next stop to zero, is that what it is?
Okay, nope, I'm gonna go there myself.
No, I'm not seeing it. So I guess this is kind of one of those things, right? That especially if there's a regional event that's happening, I know South Coast is going to push it out, but Air District's also another resource point for local fleet operators to engage with from an incentive standpoint, especially potentially they might have some resources that are available to that type of outreach. But yeah, the next one I see here is, next stop to zero education series. Well, there was a ride and drive on October 20th of 2023. So, I mean, maybe this type of
Matt,
stuff.
it's under stay informed. I just looked it up there.
Okay.
It's
So,
under
yeah.
stay informed. So yeah, we should, like I said, we need to not compartmentalize things so much.
Right. And there it is. It's like the 4th one down or whatever, where there's still stuff from the current events. We still have February 7th, February 21st. So it's important. I know that, it's a staff constraint, but again, if we're trying to be consistent and we're trying to have good branding, it's like if I who've been doing this for God, I don't even want to admit how long, I'm having a hard time like finding something. I can only imagine somebody who's like entering into this space for the first time. So I see it now, but it probably shouldn't be that hard to get to.
No.
Yeah, I think we can separate the news from events. Like we could have two separate pages for that. And if it's just events, then we would just have all the current stuff going on.
I went ahead and put the Eventbrite notification in the chat for the panelists. I'm not sure if we can put it out to everyone or not. But
the easiest way to do it, do a quick search for CalStart ride and drives.
or you can do
You'll probably
HTA, Harbor Trucking Association ride and drives, Bruce. We need
You
to
can do
push
that
You know,
too.
that's what it's all
But then
about.
you'll miss all the others.
Good point. I don't want to belabor this. I know it's getting to 4:23 and there's Katie out on the East Coast is still waiting for this to end, I'm sure. So I won't belabor this, but thank you.
I'm fine, Matt. Go ahead. No, I'm just kidding. Was that a test to see if I was still listening? Can't catch me
You
sleeping.
passed. You
Thank you.
And I think there are no more questions, Dan.
Okay. Are we ready to wrap up? Yeah, I really appreciate all the inputs, a lot of good suggestions. The team and I are gonna huddle up, figure out what we can do next. But definitely the calendar and the outreach toolkit we're on there, they're on their way to you if they're not already out there. But yeah, appreciate so much the conversation, and I look forward to continuing to work with this group, making sure that we are getting the word out on the advanced clean fleet regulation. Thanks, everyone. Cecile, hope you feel better.
I know. I'm going
Thank
to the
you.
doctor afterwards.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.